So the house price problem. Now, if you've seen my recent videos around June 2022, there's a few videos before this one. You can see that I've been talking about the economy, mainly on a macro scale. I've spoken about central banks, how they work, the finance industry, what that is, and I've offered a general view about the economic landscape that we all face. And many times house prices are mentioned, especially in the context of affordability and the housing stock that is available, in particular to young people. And again, just recently, a young person, a young professional, so this is somebody in their 20s with a professional job, made the comment that they can't see how they are going to buy a house unless they're given a lot of money or they inherit a house. But the opinion that they offered suggested that they are resigned to the fact that they won't be owning a house anytime soon. And I thought to myself, this is quite shocking. Now, of course, the last few years actually, house prices has never left the financial news press or the media, and it is a massive problem. But in actual fact, I believe it's a much bigger problem than on the face of it, because of what it means systemically in the wider economic environment that we are all in. Now, to just generally prove my point, if you were at the age of 21, between 21 and 25 in the 1970s, you might be working in a factory, you might have been a young professional, you might have been a salesman, you might have been a car salesman, you might have worked in a bread making factory. So so this is in the 1970s, and you had that job. You might have also been recently graduated. You might have worked in a coffee shop, maybe not a coffee. You might have had a job in a department store, and you might have been training to be a journalist. But you would have been able to have gone to a high street bank, and you would have been able to get a mortgage for a property, for a house. And so the more affordable houses, I'm talking about a terraced house, a 2-bedroom house, some terraced 3-bedroom houses, and some cheaper semi-detached houses. But you would have been able to have gone to a bank and got a mortgage for that property. Now today, so we are 40, 50 years on. A very similar situation today, someone that's left university, maybe works in a coffee shop, is a trainee journalist or a trainee, yes, I would even say a trainee lawyer or a trainee engineer. Perhaps you graduated with a first and you're on a graduate training scheme for a blue chip company. And you will not be able to go to a high street bank and get a mortgage like a person was able to in the 70s. Now, in actual fact, I've used the 70s to illustrate the next point I'm about to make. Now, you were able to do the same thing in the 80s and also the early 90s. So this is only 30 years ago. And So what has happened in the last 30 years? What does this really mean? Okay, if we zoom back to the 1970s and 80s, roughly a house that today would be viewed as a good house, as somewhere desirable that a professional person would want to live, that house would have been roughly 3 times, and if you really pushed it, 4 times your annual salary. Now that's the annual salary that you will have obtained working in a department store, or a trainee engineer, or a trainee lawyer, or you would have worked in a warehouse, or in a production, or an engineering company. You will have been able to obtain a mortgage. Today, if we go to what we think are better paid jobs, to illustrate this point, you still can't go to a high street bank and get a mortgage for a semi-detached or a terraced property with 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms. You can't do it unless your parents have given you £250,000, about 300,000 US dollars, basically you will have had to have been given a significant amount of money, way in excess of about 30% of that value today. Now, even if today you've scraped enough money together, and when I say enough money, we are talking about £100,000-200,000. Now that's a lot of money. So that means you've probably been given it by your parents, or you've inherited it, or you've had some fortune elsewhere. The likelihood is you certainly wouldn't have been able to save up that money. So let's say that you have actually obtained that £200,000 and you have been able to borrow £300,000, and you have bought a terraced house somewhere in the outskirts of London or just outside London. Now, the mortgage repayments are probably going to be the most of your disposable income. And right now, the energy bills that you are going to be paying plus your local council tax, they'll be taking the rest of your disposable income. And what you're left with is probably not a lot of disposable income for you to actually start buying stuff with. Things like a motor car, you will not be able to afford to buy a motor car. Actually, right there, back in the 70s, 80s and early 90s, when you obtained your mortgage for your property, and this would have been most people with a normal job, you will have had enough disposable income to go to a high street bank once again and borrow some money for a new motor car or a very good second-hand motor car. So today, you not only can obtain the mortgage for the property, but even if you have done, you're going to have very little money left to buy anything else. You are literally going to be working to service the mortgage repayments and energy bills right now. And that applies to, I would say, most people right now. But those that haven't obtained the £200,000 that it was needed for you to get on the ladder, they are... And the cruel thing, the horrible thing, is that they are resigned to the fact that they're going to be renting or living some other way, an alternative way to live with accommodation. Now, what this does, I believe, it rips away at the fabric of society. Because today, at the very same point in time, people around the age of 45 and up, they all seem to own a property or 2 properties. They all seem to have new cars, and they all seem to have a lot more money, an awful lot more money, to someone who's in their 20s. And again, the person in their 20s, their view of obtaining what someone who is in their 50s or 60s is all, they view it as unobtainable. Lucky them. This is just the way the world is. Young people today simply work very hard. They have at least one job. And I'm talking about the professional people as well. They are still resigned to the fact that they're probably not going to own a property, or it's going to be a hard, long slog. Or they have to wait for the parents to die and inherit a property. Or they have to rely on their parents to give them a lot of money. Because it's not just £10,000 or £5,000. It's not just £20,000. That won't cut it. You need an awful lot of money. £100,000 might be the very beginning. That might help. But I'm going to suggest that you need at least that, and it's more like £200,000. And again, I suppose my reference point is most definitely central London. But I'm talking good places to live, and places. Actually, no, I'm talking most of the country. So my reference point here is the United Kingdom. But what we can't get away from is this overwhelming feeling and reality that house prices are just becoming unaffordable for young people, for people that don't already have a lot of equity, or for young people that don't have a lot of money already. Either they've been given it. So what this is doing is changing, as I've just said, it's ripping away at the fabric of society, but it's having an impact on society. And I'm going to suggest that there are two views you could take here. One view is very harsh and is very, it's a very harsh view. I'm going to offer that after after this view. What is happening is house prices are removing money from people's pockets. It's making it so that most people have a little disposable income. It's making it so that going on a holiday it is something that you have to save up for, but most people can't afford to go on holiday. So it's only older people that already own a property that can afford to go on holiday. So young people are faced with this constant lack of money, this constant everything is expensive, this constant barrier to entry. Buying a car is almost not a possibility, because rent will be removing most of your money. And then bills, your energy bills and food prices are going to remove the rest of the money. What you're left with is probably enough to buy clothes and pay for your transportation costs for you to get to work. So also what I'm probably saying is most people are probably aware of this. What I'm saying here, it's most probably very obvious to people. But where I want to go with this is it's also a very nasty vector because of what it means in the future. And I'm going to assert that what it means in the future, that we're going to have a very divided society. This is really the fuel on the fire that is going to determine there is just going to be in society a smaller number of wealthy people and everybody else is relatively going to be poor. And this isn't really determined by your job either, because people in good professions, in professional professions where you would normally expect to earn more money, what's actually happened is those wages, relatively speaking, are coming down. So in real terms, your income is going down, your buying power is less and less. So what we have is most people working hard, getting poorer. And everyone will have sight of a smaller number of people who appear to be wealthy. But then you'll find out they're also getting wealthier, because these people are actually, they are buying second homes, and and because they bought their second hand, it's having an impact on the rental value and on the second hand value. Now, if these people aren't buying the housing stock, investment banks indirectly are, and private equity houses are buying the second homes. So these people over here that are wealthy already, if they don't buy the homes, the finance industry buys the homes, meaning the general public are less and less going to be buying homes. So more and more homes that you see walking down a street are going to be rental homes. So we're literally going the other direction from where we were in the 70s, 80s and the very early 90s, where we had arguably prosperity generally for the general public, to a situation today, this is 2022, where we are heading for a very divided society. Inequality is becoming more and more of a massive issue, a visible issue, but I'm going to assert it's going to get worse. And we are literally going to have rich people over here that seem to be just getting wealthier, and more people over here getting poorer. So I don't know if you can imagine what that might like, but society will literally be divided. There will be a person in an expensive car driving to one of their 3 luxurious homes. And if you're not that, you're somebody here who's just working hard to make ends meet. The likelihood of you buying a yacht or a new car is not likely, because even though you have a very good job, all that job is going to do is service your mortgage repayment or your rent payment, your food costs and energy costs. House prices and the escalating house prices is a canary in the mine that has died. It is an indicator that society is going to face some big problems in the future. It is the indicator that is explaining to people we're going to have a divided society. And what comes with a divided society are social issues and social problems that only get worse, that can end up being a massive problem for the police and the crime agencies, and for government and local governments, because essentially they have to use more and more strong arm methods to quieten the unrest. But what it is so house prices is the indicator that we have social inequality, and it's going to be visual. You will see people walking down the streets and you'll know straight away if they're over here rich or, like most people, poor, because they will visually look one or the other. A wealthy person is going to look wealthy because they're going to be jumping out of an expensive car, or they're going to be wearing visually clothes that look expensive. And everybody else is going to look a certain way. They just won't look like they're as wealthy as the wealthy people. The division in society will be visible. You'll see it. All that is going to do is going to bring discomfort for everyone, because wealthy people are going to be having to watch over their shoulder the whole time because they might be mugged, or they'll be fearing that people that don't have as much as them might be wanting to take from them, sort of figuratively as well. They're going to feel that they could be at risk in some way, that they might lose their job to someone who's more hungry for their job. And have you noticed, everything is driven by the need for money, the want for money. All behaviour is centred around the problems that money is creating. Again, money is becoming something that we all have to think about daily. It's a constant problem for people, and it's constantly the thing that's causing everyone their problems, assuming that that individual is a normal person with a normal job, having a normal life. And that actually refers to most people. So I know this video is going to come across, quite harsh and a bit glum and negative. But I really want to pull out house prices is a massive problem. And what's happening and the cause of these house prices going up is a massive problem. And that massive problem is already very wealthy people are buying up the housing stock. And if these individuals aren't, investment funds are, which means that a normal person is not going to have the opportunity to buy a house anymore. That is what is increasing house prices right now, combined with other factors that are more to do with general economics and general money mechanics. The other single cause of house prices increasing is the finance industry and high net worth individuals and already wealthy individuals that have the means to buy property. And right now, everyone that has money to invest, they just want to own property, irrespective of the harm that it's doing to the person who's in their 20s, that's working hard, who cannot buy a property. They are the people that are going to suffer, and their brothers and sisters who are younger than them, and everyone that was born 10 years ago, and everyone that's born today. All these normal people are going to suffer and struggle because of the finance industry and what's happening in the world today. And government policy is allowing this. There are some other factors, so I know people could be listening to this and they could respond, hey Stephen, there are other factors more to do with the technology environment and the macro environment. It's not all to do with policy and and evil wealthy people in the evil investment funds. Yes, that is true, but on the whole, and I'm generalizing, on the whole, what is creating house prices to go up is already very wealthy people buying up housing stock because it's their choice of investment. And the professional investment environment, investment houses, private equity houses, and indirectly investment banks, i.e., I suppose I'm explaining the professional finance industry. This is something that is going to cause a lot of damage. And right now, governments should be on this like a ton of bricks, creating policy around it that is focused on society and sustainable social culture. And I'm going to assert that it's not doing that right now, and we are facing some very nasty problems in the future. Actually, it's not even in the future. These problems exist right now, today. People can't pay their bills, people can't buy a house. It is a problem for young people. So, apologies for this rough video. It's a bit harsh, I know. I will come back to it again, and I hope your day is okay. This probably hasn't made you that cheerful. I do apologise, but I thought the point needed to be made. We will be talking about this again. Once again, I do hope everyone is well, and I hope to see you all again soon.